Did you have a good result with that? If you pretend it's going to work, you'll discover it does. Honestly, guys, and remember, you are getting our entire power induction product free. We used to sell it. We sold a lot of them, $97 each. We're giving the whole thing. Get out there and use it. You'll find these inductions will work really well. And not only does it teach all the inductions on the video that you get, but there's an audio component where Chris interviews me on each one. So he unpacks it in detail so you find out why it works and so on. Any questions about that method? Here's why it works. 1933, Clark Hull. You want to get this for us, Chris?
Sure, you got it.
You write better than I do, despite the fact that you're left-handed. Clark Hull, professor, psychologist, Yale University, one of Milton Erickson's teachers. Clark Hull said in Hypnosis and Suggestibility, he said, anything that assumes trance causes trance. That line is absolutely key to doing sterling work, amazing work, when you figure out what it means. There's something very Zen about it. Clark Hull said, anything that assumes trance causes trance. And here's how that plays out in the real world, whatever that is. Oh, some nice psychotic indicators in your writing, Chris.
Doesn't count. It's not my regular
Doesn't
handwriting.
count. Doesn't count if it's in orange. Okay. So what does that mean? Remember we drew early on the diagram of the hypnotic relationship, the psychodynamic loop between the man or female and the other person who is the subject. And it's the arc between the two, this loop taking place, and trance develops in between. Now let's say for a moment, if I need a supposed medium trance, whatever that is, I have no idea. But if you have a medium trance, you can then produce a cataleptic arm that floats in the air. Well, one way of going about this is old school. You hypnotize the person, you deepen it, and you say, your arm is becoming rigid. Your arm is floating in the air. It is cataleptic. It does it. And you get really dramatic. And after a while of this, the arm floats in the air, becomes cataleptic, and you can proclaim victory. Or you can do it the other way around. You create the phenomena and automatically get the trance. Just create the cataleptic limb, and the trance comes along for free. Isn't that easier? Way easier than banging your head on a wall. So we'll show you a few different catalepsy inductions here. When we produce the phenomena, we get the trance that is required to produce that phenomena. You can't have one without the other. Well, actually, you can. You can have the trance without the phenomena, but you cannot have the phenomena without the trance. In fact, Erickson proved that it is impossible to fake hypnosis really well. Because as soon as you fake it really well, guess what happens? You go into a trance because you're building in all the components. Back in the early days, Erickson was doing hypnosis demonstrations, and someone had hired a young actor friend of theirs. This young actor had a really peculiar ability. He could sneeze at will. And so what they did was they asked him to volunteer for Milton's demonstration, whereupon, partway through the demo, they would give the signal from the audience, and this guy would sneeze. And it would throw Erickson off, and they thought this would be hilarious. So they paid him $10, which back in those days was a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you could buy a house for $10 back then. So they got this guy on stage. He volunteers. Erickson's there doing all the stuff, being as weird as he was so wonderfully. And the guy gives a signal, and the man does not sneeze. So he gives a signal, whatever it was, more clearly, and the man does not sneeze. And this continues, and finally goes up to the front. He grabs this guy and shakes him. He says, stop pretending to be hypnotized. I'm paying you $10 to sneeze, and damn it, you're going to sneeze. The guy was absolutely zoned through the floor in a trance. Didn't sneeze, even for the $10. So when you begin to build in components, this will work for you. This will cause the kind of response without going about it the long way. Honestly, my approach is simplicity. There is a mythology in all of the sciences, especially interpersonal ones, that we have to make things complicated to make them better. And in reality, I'm a great believer in elegance. You just trim things down, get down to the basics that will make it work. And this is one of those. It's a bare bones induction. You can use this if you're doing street hypnosis. I've done this with street hypnosis in Yonge Street in Toronto, biggest street in the world. And I don't really understand street hypnosis. I did it for a documentary. To me, it's doing your job without getting paid. It's like, it's like doing street dentistry. You know, yeah, let's go a root canal right over here. You know, so that was a cool thing. We shot this documentary called Mind Mavericks, me and 3 other hypnotists, and we went to the Dominion Hotel, and I got the waiter in trance with Ericksonian hypnosis over lunch, and told him that I would pay the bill with the Toronto Public Library card, which he would accept. And we have it on video. It's just fantastic, broadcast quality. And this guy comes over to the table, and we kept working with yes sets and compliance sets. Could we have more cutlery, please? Sure, he'd bring more cutlery. Could you put my beer on the edge of the bar there? Yeah, sure. And he's complying. We're setting up embedded commands, and then finally put him in the trance and give him this instruction. So at the end of the day, they got it on camera. I say, okay, we're done. We'll have the bill. Yep, sure. And he comes over with the bill for dinner for lunch for 5. And I said, I've only got a Toronto Public Library card. He said, no problem, we take that. And then the camera zooms in, and he's over behind the bar, and he's going, trying to make it work in the machine. Finally, he just did it by hand and brought my card back. And but being nice people, we told him, and we did pay for our lunch. But you can slip in and out of this stuff so frickin' easily. Chris is the king of the vanishing wallet. Somehow, a few times in restaurants together, he's managed to lose his wallet and find it 30 or 40 feet away, stuck on a wall or in a plant, and put there by the waitress who doesn't remember taking it. It's fantastic stuff. So, this works for the same reason. You're creating a cataleptic limb and you're getting the trance by default. I recommend you always deepen the trance, though. There's this other mythology. It's not really a myth, it's just misused. This idea, how many times I've heard it said over the last 30, 40 years, a light trance is all that's required to make all kinds of changes. That's true. But the people who typically continuously say that are the ones who are always getting people into light trances. And it starts to sound like justification. Zone them through the floor every frickin' time. You don't need those idiotic depth scales. Just frickin' hypnotize them. Make it easy on yourself. Don't complicate it. Some of these academics, I really believe they're educated beyond their own intelligence. It's unbelievable. Not all of them, but some of them are. My friend Arthur Perlini is professor of psychology at Algoma University. His specialty is hypnosis. And he's never studied Milton Erickson, ever. I mean, it's just insane. And so we were having a talk once. He was driving somewhere. He said, Mandel, so what you're saying is true. Then hypnosis is happening all the time. I said, that's right. Hadn't even touched on this stuff. So in many, many ways, we can approach this very, very simply. So let's do another one. I got a cool one. Who's the young man who asked me if he could come up? Come on up here, sir. All right. What's your name?
John.
Correct. Good to see you, John. John, have a seat there, buddy. I'm just going to have a sip of this perfectly ordinary water. Nothing like drawing attention to it. All right. John, how would you like to go into a really deep, enjoyable trance that will cause you to refresh your entire energy level, your nervous system? You'll just feel amazing afterwards.
Fast.
You like that?
Yeah.
You good for that? Okay, move forward a little bit here. Then I don't get too close to that. Are you right-handed or left-handed? Right-handed. Okay. Here's what I'd like you to do. Just rest this hand right here on this finger. And look right here, and eyes closed now. That's right. Take a deep breath. And exhale. And as you continue to breathe, your unconscious mind can create this wonderful, powerful trance for you. That's right. And begin to just float with that as it just happens automatically on its own. Continue to go with that and enjoy that trance state. I mean, really enjoy it, because your imagination is stronger than your willpower. And you can imagine that you will empower yourself. And when you begin to realize that you can see with your real eyes all the sorts of transformation that become appropriate and easy for you to make as you drift further and deeper and install every bit of this program so you feel amazing when you come back to the surface now. All the way back. Hi. You can put that down. Give this man a hand. We'll send him back. Now, it's a very, very easy and very powerful induction that once again creates a cataleptic limb. So it's a leverage induction. It opens the door so we can cause trance by going for phenomena first. I had a hypnosis show when I was 21 or 22 at Georgian College in Barrie, Ontario. And afterwards, this man came up, this very bumptious English fellow, very tall. I can say that because I'm English. And he had his wife with him and some other guy, one of his subjects, and he was furious with me. And he said, I'm Ted Heath, and I'm the most famous, wonderful hypnotist in the world. I said, cool, nice to meet you. He said, I'm sure you've heard of me. I said, actually, no, I haven't. I live a sort of a sheltered life, though. So he said, what you're doing is wrong. What? I thought he meant immoral. I said, what's wrong with it? He said, you're taking away someone's name without a somnambulistic trance. I said, what's wrong with that? He said, it's impossible. That's why he just saw me do it. He said, that's not the point. See, it's true, absolutely true. It was not his model of the world. So I was creating the phenomena of the person forgetting their name and then getting the deep trance as an artifact with that, just something that came along with it. It's remarkably easy to do. I just fire up the psychodynamics for forgetting. Forgetting is more powerful than not remembering. If you want your subjects to forget some work you've done, talk about forgetting. Don't talk about not remembering. Forgetting is active. Not remembering is passive. And you can give them the whole thing we've all experienced. And the memory of this can fade as easily as a dream fades when you awaken in the morning. That's right. Okay? So, when you set up forgetfulness, all of these things have the power behind them to enhance your work in the most remarkable ways. The way you make this one work is you're creating a phenomena that goes back to John Grinder's New Code. John Grinder talks about the Grinder model. You want to get this for me, buddy? Thanks. Take purple, Ericksonian purple. The Grinder model is a great way of looking at change. And this, again, is one that came from Derek Balmer, this breathing with the hand induction, we call it. Now, if you want to have a good performance in anything you are doing, making a presentation, playing marbles, singing a song, running a marathon, cooking a meal, whatever it is, you want to be in a powerful state for that purpose. And so your performance in anything, which is on the bottom level here, performance, I'm glad I got Chris doing this. I just cannot bring myself to kneel to a piece of paper. It all just seems vaguely idolatrous. All right, so taking the worship of trees too far. So your performance in any task is predicated by the state you are in. If you are in a sufficiently powerful state, you will have no difficulty performing what you are supposed to. It must be the right state for the job. And that's where this tapping on the back of the hand comes in handy. John Grinder told me that you can erase all kinds of negative things with people, provided you put in enough positives. You can overwhelm bad stuff with enough positive stuff that it just falls apart and disappears, which is a great way to do it. Now, the way you change the state and get a more empowered state there is by changing physiology. How do you stand? How are you moving? What's your spine angle like? When you change your physiology, you change everything. If you sit and hunch all the time and sort of breathe shallow, you'll start feeling depressed and your brain will not be stimulated. If you stand up and you throw your shoulders back and you move as though you are powerful, you will then fire a powerful state and your performance will go up. And at the top of it, we have the breathing. When we change breathing, as every martial artist knows, breathing changes everything. When we teach students, the newbies in our British Jiu-Jitsu class, they have a tendency to hold their breath when they do a technique. And that disempowers you. You want to breathe into it. You don't want to move through the technique. So in Qigong, in yoga, in Tai Chi, all of these disciplines, even things like TM, breathing changes everything. Breathing will change your physiology. It'll bring your blood pressure down. It'll affect your vagus nerve so that if you're taking longer breaths, the parasympathetic nervous system fires and you'll relax. So with this induction, we get this brilliant side effect because by monitoring and controlling the person's breathing, making it slow and deep, we are changing their state and their physiology without them even knowing it. And the one we're putting them in is a powerful one. Because you can't breathe slowly and deeply without feeling better. It calms the amygdala. One of the 3 things that will calm your amygdala in fight, flight, or freeze response. Breathing, exercise, or, that's right. Gotta love those Zeigarnik loops. No resolution. It's just freaking horrible, isn't it? Anyway, so we've got a method that causes a breathing shift. So Chris, just model this. You can stand here even. So here's how it's done. So here's what we're going to do, and work on this and put you in this great state. Excellent. May I borrow that hand? So let's dissociate it again. So all I do is I'm going to put it on my fingertip like this. So my finger's on the ridge where the wrist is. Now I don't say relax. I don't want him to relax, because if he relaxes, his arm's going to go limp, and I'm not going to get a cataleptic response. It's like if you're doing that hand levitation induction, which is very slow, very cumbersome. Erickson premiered that in 1929 at the Clark Hull seminars. I don't know why anybody does it. It's so much freaking work. Your hand's rising, it's getting lighter, it's getting lighter. The secret is you rest your fingertips on your leg and say, rest your fingertips on your leg as lightly as possible. So you've already got catalepsy starting.
Or you can say something like place if you don't want to say
Place,
rest.
nice,
Just
yeah.
place your hand lightly
Not
on my
relax
finger.
completely. So, and I'll say, eyes closed now. Take a deep breath. Exhale. Now, I'm not breathing on him, I'm breathing beside him because I had some Mexican food with that brunch. But I'm breathing aside from him because he had it as well. And notice I'm slowing the exhalation by going a little bit longer in the downstroke. Look what happens. This just automates. That's what you're feeling for. It automates and it'll just keep going on its own. And which you just say, that's right. And it will keep going on its own. Now we've got a trance and we have a cataleptic limb, and he's gotten in a good state as well from shifting his breathing. And now if I want it to keep going, I say, and you can continue to breathe deeply as you were with your hand moving in pace with your breathing, and you'll start it happening again. Now I can give him all the suggestions I want, and we'll see what happens.
This is
We'll
nice.
bring him out of it. So come back to now. It's nice and
very
easy.
relaxing.
Very
Very
relaxing.
comfortable.
Very comfortable, very artistic. So you're going to lift. Breathe in and that's right. And every breath you take, go nice and slow and deep. Tell them how comfortable they are and how they're going deeper and deeper all the time. And you'll get trance automatically with this. And you can do all kinds of cool things. Ready? And go.
5 minutes. Yeah, I just want to disclose that was not me who whistled. Sorry. That was this gentleman right here. All right.
Okay.
Come on back.
Let us debrief. We have just run into a very interesting question from the young lady back here when you asked me, what happens if it doesn't float?
That can happen.
That can happen. And that's what we do next. Any other questions about it, about that technique? We'll go through and then we'll answer that particular one. Yes?
You had asked when you demonstrated on the subject if he was what dominant hand. Does that matter?
No, it's irrelevant. Just felt like saying it.
Right. Here.
But I admit it,
Let
so
me,
it's okay. Yeah,
Let me
but
say something.
you go ahead.
Okay, just want to make sure. Am I on? I think my mic's on.
Am I on?
Yeah. Am I on? Can you hear me? This
Yes,
is
you
Clem
hear Clem
Fandango.
I can hear you.
Okay. Quick important point about any induction that involves catalepsy. You'll notice that we set up catalepsy fast, then we want to go on and use it. I want you to imagine that you're driving your car and you pull up to a four-way stop. You stop the car, complete stop, you look, you determine it's safe. What do you do now? You continue on. You don't sit there and go, well, I stopped, so I might as well make sure there was a purpose and wait for another car. Point being, once you have catalepsy, you don't need to work on creating catalepsy anymore. Start using the catalepsy. Use it for whatever's next. Deepener, installing of resources, generating new ideas, whatever we're going to move on to next.
Yes.
Use it. You've stopped at the stop sign, now drive.
Now do something with it. Have it
Right.
either sink to deepen the trance or rise up when you're ready to make changes. Just, you got a visual indicator of what's going on now. That makes it so useful. And it'll just stay there. No one questions it. No one says, why is my hand floating? They may after the fact, in which case it becomes a terrific convincer because they say, well, I don't think I was hypnotized. You notice that? You say to someone, okay, you're going to say afterwards you don't believe you were hypnotized because you heard everything I said. And you see, you will understand because if you don't hear what I say, it's a totally different state. That's called death. So you have to hear me. And afterwards they come out of it and they say, I don't think I was hypnotized. Why not? Well, I heard everything you said. Stop saying that before one of us does die. Drives me nuts. But now you can point back and say, well, remember we were doing this and your hand was just sort of floating on its own in the air? Yeah. And yeah, but I felt like I could just stop. Oh, but you didn't though, did you? No. Wonder why that is. What do you think that means? I guess I was hypnotized. That's right. Okay. So use it. It's immensely powerful. We want to just quickly say as well, anything else on this before we tie it in? Go ahead, Ken.
Does the arm have to actually keep moving up and down, or if it's just their catalepsy?
It can just stay still. It doesn't have to keep moving.
Good question.
But this takes us to the section on installation and incorporation, because if the person's hand collapses, you're just going to use that. It's just utilization instead. So whatever behavior they offer you, it's always entirely appropriate, provided, they don't do something really weird. Erickson said you can't hypnotize people who are chewing gum or people who are, all twitchy and everything. You got to settle them down first. And if you're working with someone and you're telling them that their hand is, floating or whatever, or you don't even have to say it if it's just going that way, but it gets very heavy and starts to sink, just utilize that now. And as your hand gets even heavier and sinks lower, that's right, limp and loose, as though that's exactly what you intended it to do in the first place. The best that ever happened to me in my life, it was one of those incredible moments that you just dream, because so many moments in life suck, and this was one of those that didn't at all. I remember working with a subject, and the National Guild asked me to do that demo on rapid induction. So we had standing room only room. It was fantastic. And I wanted someone who had never been able to experience hypnosis to come up. You want to throw the gauntlet down right away. And this beautiful young Scandinavian looking woman, blonde, early 20s, came up and I said, "Have you ever been hypnotized?" She said, "No, I had no experience with it at all." I said, "Okay, I want you to sit in that chair and I'm just going to lift the first finger of your right hand like this." Now, what's supposed to happen is where we're going next. The finger becomes cataleptic and all of this, and then you cascade that into a full-on trance. What actually happened was, as I touched her finger, she went, "Phew." Now, years ago, I would have said, no, you're doing it wrong. Don't you know who I think I am? But instead, I did the Milton. I said, "That's right." And the room went freaking nuts. They were just, well, they weren't, cool, but in my mind, they were. A lot. They still are. They still are in my mind. So you're going to utilize whatever happens. Utilization is whatever behavior they give you, that's okay. Spin that back into the psychodynamic loop and make it work for you. If someone adjusts their position, say, "That's right." And as you get even more comfortable, you can go even deeper into trance. Now, closely akin to this is incorporation. Utilization is using whatever the subject does, whatever behavior they offer, you utilize it, make it work for you. Incorporation is similar, but it's not the subject, it's the external circumstances. Whatever happens outside the session that would be a disruption, use that. For example, I would never in my office turn my phone off, the desk phone. I'd always tell them in pre-frame, we got Stembo's method of pro-hypnosis where you're seeding suggestions in advance. I'd say something like, and if anything that would normally be considered to be a disruption, like the phone ringing or someone coming to the door, should happen, instead it will actually send you even deeper than where you are now. So just set it up in advance. Phone rings, the person, they're gone even further. So use things that are external. A fire truck goes by with the siren blaring. You say, "And the remnants of your conscious mind can fade into the distance just as that fire truck sound fades into the distance." And they'll go, "Whoa." It'll work. Ted James did the best example of this I've ever heard. It was so beautifully elegant. He was working with a client in his office, and in his office he had one of these huge grandfather clocks. And when they chime, before they do, the mechanism winds up for a few seconds, and then it starts the chiming. And he's got the person in a deep trance, and all of a sudden he hears right behind him, the clock begins to wind up to chime, and he looks and sees it's 7 o'clock. And he said, "Any moment now, you'll discover 7 powerful ways you've already changed." The clock goes, "Bong!" And he says, "1." So the client said to him afterwards, it was the most powerful experience with hypnosis he'd ever had. So be alert for things you can use outside the session to make it work even stronger. Smiling quietly to yourself can send you even deeper into trance. All of these things. And the most important take-home right now is you must calibrate. You have to calibrate the other person's external behavior. So, if you don't calibrate them, you won't see the changes and you whiz right by them. Obviously, when I say calibrate, I mean you have to get a baseline when that person sits in front of you, and then you can see when they deviate from it. So you want to see in an instant, what's their posture? What's the facial tonus? What's the facial coloration? Lower lip size? How are they breathing? Are their eyes scrunched up like Bob's are right now? They just stopped instantly. Amazing incorporation. So you're going to point these things out to yourself. You're going to spot all the things that are occurring, and that becomes your key for calibration. You cannot see what you cannot see, as my mentor Derek Balmer used to say. What he meant, because that's a tautology, it gives you no information. It's like saying all lawyers are lawyers. Yeah, you can't see what you can't see. What he meant was you can't see what you're not looking for. And I said, I saw a trainer, a very good trainer, put someone in and out of trance 3-4 times and still in the middle of the induction. Because you got to look at the person and notice it's working. And then you just go on to your next thing. So when you're looking at this, calibration is going to be the center of this triangle. And you're always going to be calibrating. It's your ABC. Always be calibrating. You have to be looking at the person. When the psychoanalysts hijacked hypnosis and basically put it on the shelf and nearly got rid of it for many, many years, what were you doing? You got people sitting there not calibrating anymore. I'm sure there were great psychoanalysts. Erickson was one. That's why he took so many sessions to work with clients sometimes. But if you're sitting looking at your notes, you're not going to see what's happening to this person. So make sure you're in that psychodynamic loop, which is why this C is in the middle. The second C in the Mandel triangle is confidence. If you have confidence, you know you have confidence. And if you're doing something like making a presentation, for instance, you can be so confident it can be ridiculous because the resource is only there when you need it. And if you're waiting in advance for that thing that you'll have then, you aren't going to see it. Now is the time to prepare unconsciously so that those shifts, that's right, when they are integrated into the depths of your being, it will happen at that time when you need it. Wide awake now. Okay, so if you need confidence, if you behave as though you were confident, guess what? You'll start to radiate confidence. We are all drawn to confident people. There's something about that. And when people are confident and they are radiating an essential goodness and caring about you as well, then that's what charisma is. Charisma is that combination of confidence and kindness, but resourcefulness to strengthen the ability to help. And I'll tell you, I've said this many times, my friend Freddie Jacquin is one of the most charismatic individuals on the frickin' planet. You interact with that man for 5 minutes, he's got more charisma than frickin' Queen of England does. It's just incredible. And he's there. He's present with you. His mind isn't wandering somewhere else. I'm going to start modeling his charisma a little bit more. Mind, I'd have to take off even more hair, which could be problematic. Back to the wig. So you have confidence, but you also have congruence. Congruence is when all of your systems are sending one consistent message. Your body language, your internal monologue, your beliefs at that moment about yourself, your level of health, all of these things are sending a consistent message. And when it's a positive message, people will listen to you. I had to learn congruence, but I said I learned it from the best. I am standing on the shoulders of giants. I've had the absolute best teachers in the world, starting with Donald Thayne in grade 6, who taught me to love learning. And then to Hickson Gracie and John Grinder. These people are the true giants. But as we absorb their stuff, we get more congruent. And when we're congruent, we're sending a consistent message. And our confidence goes up too. See, this is supposed to be, the Mandel triangle is equilateral. Meaning if you strengthen any one of the 3 sides by making it longer, the others have to grow as well at the exact same ratio. If you increase your confidence, your congruence will go up too. If you increase your congruence, your confidence will go up. You can increase any one of them. The larger you make all of these sides, the more powerful you will be as a presenter, because you'll be in uptime the entire time. If you're an NLP person, you know uptime, you have 0 self-awareness, no internal dialogue at all. You are just a feedback mechanism with the group you're dealing with and monitoring the group and feeding back stuff. And that is a true flow state. Now down under here is intention. But we want to keep it letter C. So, Chris, what is it? Conviction. You said that with incredible conviction, young man. All right, conviction. Now, intention is the most woo-woo of anything I get. I don't understand intention at all. I have no understanding of it whatsoever, but it works. It works so incredibly well that when we focus our will and our belief and our imagination, something marvelous happens. And the reason it does, I believe, is we are tuning the reticular activating system, the RAS. Intention tunes that. And the reticular activating system determines what you notice in your conscious awareness. Now, in NLP terms, we say because I'm an NLP trainer, so I think of it in those terms. We think of conscious as the magic number 7 plus or minus 2. Some people say, oh, it doesn't apply anymore. It's a model. I use it all the time, works great. So some people as many as 9, some as few as 5 bits of information in conscious awareness. The rest of the information, 3 to 20 million bits per second, is unconscious. And so I'm using an Ericksonian pattern here. I never say subconscious. It's just either it's in those 7 bits that you're aware of, or it's below your conscious awareness. Like, think of your phone number right now. Everybody think your phone number. Where was it before you thought of it? It wasn't in one of those 7 conscious chunks, was it? It was unconscious. Your unconscious is monitoring all the time the most microscopic changes, and it's doing things with your RAS, your reticular activating system, presenting things to your conscious awareness. So I can mess with your RAS right now by pointing out things that are in your unconscious mind and having them become conscious suddenly. Like the feeling of your shoes wrapped around your feet. And the sound of the ventilation. And the awareness of your own breathing. The feeling of your tongue inside your mouth. Bing! Where did that come from? It was there all the time. It was transmitting, but you were not conscious of it at that time. We tune the RAS when we put our mind intently on something. Years ago, I refound a lot of the great books I had when I was a kid. And those who were at the keynote know that I had this experience with this bear. And I began to build bridges to my childhood ego states and remember great stuff from my childhood. My inner child became executive more often. And I fed this by rebuying a lot of the books I had when I was a kid, finding them again. Now it's easy, you do it online. Well, back then, mid-90s, you couldn't do that. And so I'd just go through used bookstores, see if I could see anything of interest. There was one book I wanted. I hadn't had it for many, many years. Got lost in a move somewhere. It was called the Peterkin Papers. It was a book of short stories for kids. Great book. A weird gray and pink cover. And so I wanted that book. I thought of it intently. Intention. I want this book. I want to get that again. Then I forgot about it. And about maybe at least a month later, what I didn't know was my reticular activator system was scanning constantly for that damn book. And one day, it was raining in Toronto. I'm a pluviophile. I love the rain. Born in England in April, that's probably why. I've got rain in my DNA. I wouldn't want it every day of the year, but 350 days would be great. So I'm on Yonge Street, walking north. The downpour hits that was too heavy. I ducked into a doorway and went, oh, it's a used bookstore. Opened the door. It was old books, stacked to the ceiling, thousands upon thousands of books. As I walked down the aisle, not thinking of anything in particular, I started to turn my head, and half a second before my eye turned, I knew the Peterkin Papers was on that top shelf. My unconscious had noticed that distinct pink and gray cover on the binding, and there it is, $2. I mean, incredible stuff. Now, when you use your intention in combination with the Mandel Triangle, you intend your hypnotic work to work, and you're doing this and delivering it congruently, and with stellar confidence, the world changes really, really quickly. Now, I'm going to give you our lunchtime, or our break metaphor. Already had lunch. And we're going to be breaking for 40 minutes. We'll be back in this room at 3:30. If you want to mark your seat, feel free to do so. I'm sure people will be in and out. I hope you come back, because this afternoon we're going to do a few killer inductions in the time that we have, and we'll show you how to do one that's mind-blowing. It's an entire therapy, this one induction, the clench induction, and you can transform people in front of your eyes on a bus, a train, a subway, whatever. So that'll be this afternoon. But first, we have to give you the metaphor. You can't leave yet. Okay, I want to give you our lunchtime metaphor. All of these are, or our break metaphor, all of these are true. Erickson said your best metaphors come from your own life. And this is an interesting one I'll share with you now. A number of years ago, I was doing forensic hypnosis fairly frequently, especially for Durham Regional Police, who are east of the city of Toronto. They're very forward-thinking. And I worked with them with a McDonald's robbery and the Raglan murder case, which is still open, and a number of different things. But then I got called from a completely different police service. I'm not going to mention it because this is being recorded, and I don't think I can. But this was a case where a woman who was a worker in a women's shelter, she protected women who were being abused at home, gave them a safe place. And she had 2 beds in this place. Really a small, feisty woman, just amazing person. Her name was Louise. She had been at work, came out at 11 p.m. Nobody was there. No one was looking after the place. because there was no one in the bed. So she locked it up, came out to the alleyway north of the city of Toronto, and this whack job had been following her and stalking her without her knowledge, obviously for weeks. He was waiting in the dark by her car to sexually assault her. The horror of the situation is he was in drag, and he was wearing a dress made of the identical fabric she was wearing that day. And he had a wig that was like her hair and makeup. And she sees this tall, grinning, grotesque version of herself in the dark. He attacked her. She fought him off, knowing that you never go with anyone to a secondary crime scene. Your chance of survival, if you go with them, is almost non-existent. Fight immediately to the death. Never go with them and wait for a better opportunity. So she fought. He didn't get her out of there. He took off. She phoned the police. They showed up. They took her in for questioning, and they showed her 16 photographs that the computer spewed out to determine who would fit the profile of this kind of crime within 30 miles, which is about the diameter, how far somebody would go with this kind of thing, of the radius. They got to be close enough to stalk you. And so 16 photographs come out. They said, look at them. She said, it makes no difference. It was dark. He said, but look, can you figure it? She said, I have no idea. He had a wig. He had makeup. So they hit a dead end. They phoned me 5 weeks later, said, will you work with her unconscious mind to see if she has the information? I said, hey, we got nothing to lose. I came up with a method that doesn't produce false memory syndrome. That's what makes it different. And so they brought her in the following week, now 6 weeks after the crime, to the women's shelter where she felt safest. They bring a policewoman, they bring in the videographer from the cops, and the detective who's going to do the the interview, and another detective, and me. So I sit the detective and her down. I start doing a verbal Ericksonian induction. She starts going into trance. Now, I never talk about the case before, during, or after the event, so I never have to go to court. I've never mentioned the crime. I'm just stimulating hypermnesia, recall. So she's sitting there. I'm doing this Ericksonian induction. She starts going into trance. The detective is a phenomenal subject. He's gone. True story. He's gone. And so they move the camera so he's out of the frame. And we do the whole procedure. Just give her a metaphor. You're walking on a beautiful beach and you find an old-fashioned skeleton key and decide to bring it with you. All guided imagery. And now you find a beautiful old house, friendly and full of warm, happy memories, and you can find what you need to find. Embedded command. Wait now. You'll come out of the trance only when you've found what you need to find. Implication, that key you've discovered will unlock your mind. You'll find the info. Takes her 3 minutes to come out of hypnosis. Takes the detective 9 minutes. So, I don't know what the hell he remembered. She comes out of it. They give her the same 16 photographs. No exaggeration. She went, it was that guy. They went, whoa, take your time. I don't have to. It was him. It was him. They said, okay. They drive around. They find out where he lived. He lived in Newmarket, Ontario. They pull into his driveway. He comes running out of the house in his bathrobe and pajamas. Thank God you're here. I knew you were going to catch me. The stress of this has been killing me. We got to read your rights. Read whatever you want, but get me some help. And so they take him in. Turns out he's producing 15 times too much testosterone. He undergoes chemical castration at the Clark Institute of Psychiatry in Toronto. I tell this story at a homicide seminar in New York where I was invited to speak. And there's all the skepticism in the room. I was calibrating it. And then a golden moment, a guy stands up. He said, I'm Dr. Peter Collins, forensic psychiatrist. I work for the Ontario Provincial Police. He said, I did the chemical castration in that case. Thank you! Just one of those golden moments.